Welcome into Detroit's only nightly political talk show. This, my friends, is The Pulse. I'm Roop Raj. We are covering a lot this evening, so let's dive right in. We begin with a blow to President Trump's push to end birthright citizenship for the kids of parents who are in the U.S. illegally. A federal judge blocked the administration's efforts today. This is actually the third court ruling blocking the birthright order nationwide since a key Supreme Court decision back in June. The judge is overseeing a lawsuit by more than a dozen states that argue the order is blatantly unconstitutional. The Supreme Court will likely be considering the issue once again, so you're going to be hearing more about this as time rolls on. We say it all the time, this show is about you, and we want to know what you think. Our viewers have a lot to say about this. Stacy, we'll begin with you. Thanks for writing into The Pulse. I don't have any issues with birthright citizenship as long as the parents are here legally. This doesn't mean they have to be citizens, just here legally. I have issue with my tax dollars supporting anyone here illegally. Thank you so much for your comment here today. This next one, you're going to love the names. Coffee Love Forkina shared these feelings. My ancestors are indigenous of these native lands, and my grandparents came for land and opportunity. My grandfather worked hard to build the community we now know as Detroit's Mexican town. I am proud of my heritage and appreciate the value of hard work instilled in me. It's the people who build the communities, not the government. I applaud the courts in their ruling. If you'd like to share your thoughts with us, just email us at thepulse@fox.com or use that QR code right there at the bottom of your screen. I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, deportation flights from the remote Everglades immigration lockup known as Alligator Alcatraz have actually started. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says the first flights transported about 100 people to other countries, though the destinations weren't made public. Hundreds more have been flown to federal hubs in other states. Critics have condemned the facility as cruel and inhumane. However, DeSantis and other Republican officials say it's part of the state's aggressive push to support President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration.
You know, this was never intended to be something where people are just held and we just kind of twiddle our thumbs. The whole purpose is to make this be a place that can facilitate increased frequency and numbers of deportations of illegal aliens, and that is the goal. And one of the reasons why this was a sensible spot is because you have this runway that's right here.
Now, the facility was built in a matter of just days, over 10 square miles. It has hundreds of security cameras, more than 5 miles of barbed wire, and is filled with pythons and alligators in that water. Officials say it can hold up to 5,000 detainees. President Trump is tackling homelessness on a national level. This week, he signed an executive order that would allow cities and states to remove displaced people off the streets and into treatment centers. It also directs Attorney General Pam Bondi to work with other officials, including Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to fast-track federal funding to states and cities that crack down on things like open illicit drug use, urban camping, and squatting. The administration says it's all in an effort to fight what it's calling vagrancy, threatening U.S. cities. But critics argue this order criminalizes poverty and homelessness, may cause unjust hospitalizations, and that it does nothing to help people to actually get affordable housing. Taking a look at some of the numbers that mean something according to this story, a little context for you. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 770,000 people in the U.S. experienced homelessness last year, marking an 18% increase over 2023. Now, one area that saw an even larger jump during that time, families and children. They saw a 39% increase from 2023 to 2024, while the number of unhoused veterans dropped nearly 8% in the same time frame. Well, Ghislaine Maxwell wrapping up nearly 2 days of interviews with the Justice Department. The meeting comes as Congress and the public, including many of President Trump's supporters, demand more answers in this Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Her attorney says she answered questions from about 100 people in this deposition, trying to get some answers from Ghislaine. You know, Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence for child sex trafficking and other crimes from her time alongside financier Jeffrey Epstein. Now, who took the FBI, I should say, who took his own life in prison while awaiting his trial in 2019. The case has generated endless attention and conspiracy theories because of his and Maxwell's links to famous people like the royals, presidents, billionaires, including President Trump and, yes, former President Clinton. Today, he was asked if Maxwell could receive a pardon or commutation. Take a listen.
Something I haven't thought about. It's really something recommended. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
We haven't spoken to the president or anybody about a pardon just yet. And you know, listen, the president this morning said he had the power to do so. We hope he exercises that power in the right and just way.
Maxwell is currently appealing that conviction based on the government's pledge years ago that any potential Epstein co-conspirators would not be charged despite allegations. The Justice Department has said an Epstein client list simply does not exist. Of course, a lot of layers and perspectives to this story. Recently, our own Taryn Asher spoke with Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark, about his death right here on The Pulse. That's talked about the alleged client list. They talked about a lot more. You can find that on our website right now, fox2detroit.com, and, of course, our app, Fox Local. Former Congressman George Santos is officially starting his federal prison sentence for the fraud charges that got him ousted from office. He'll be serving a 7-year sentence after pleading guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. Santos admitted to deceiving donors and stealing the identities of nearly a dozen people to fund his own congressional campaign. He served less than a year in Congress before being expelled in 2023. And a federal prosecutor fired by Attorney General Pam Bondi is now suing the Trump administration. Michael Gordon prosecuted more than 36 people linked to the January 6th insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. He was one of 3 prosecutors fired after working cases tied to the 2021 incident. Now, Gordon says his firing was politically motivated and done because he was good at his job. The Justice Department has declined to comment on this lawsuit. 5 deaths were linked to the Capitol riots, and nearly 1,600 people were charged. President Trump pardoned most of them back in January. The Trump administration is releasing billions of dollars in grants to schools for adult literacy, English language instruction, and other programs. It comes after the administration withheld $6 billion in funding earlier this month as part of a review to ensure spending aligned with the White House's priorities. That move, as you may remember, was challenged by a number of educators as well as lawmakers from both sides of the aisle. Last week, the department said it would release $1.3 billion for after-school and summer programming. Without that cash, school districts and nonprofits like the YMCA and Boys and Girls Club of America, they've said they could have to close or have to scale back educational offerings this fall. We will be following that one very closely. Still ahead on The Pulse tonight, we are continuing our coverage of the latest ruling in that birthright citizenship battle, plus a new round of tariffs getting ready to go into effect in a matter of days. We're breaking it down with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and the urban conservative Kerry Jackson. You're watching The Pulse here on Fox 2. Welcome back to The Pulse, where we focus on all things people, power, and politics. And our 2 guests in Studio C right now know a thing or two about those topics. Democratic U.S. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and the urban conservative Kerry Jackson. We thank you both for joining us here on The Pulse. I'm glad to see both of you, and we have so much to get to. I want to begin with this, this new piece that President Trump is pushing to help remove displaced people and put them into treatment centers. You know, at first look here, at first glance, Congresswoman, it is important for people to get help if they're on the streets. Is that how you see this particular order coming down from the White House?
Well, first of all, at first blush, it may look okay because we do have a homeless problem in this country, and too many people, for a variety of reasons, don't have a place to live, they don't have a job, and many have mental health issues. But where are they going to go? How are they going to get the help that they need? Many of them have mental health challenges. We closed many of the mental health services decades ago and have done nothing to replace it. And how are we going to make sure that they have basic due process?
When we say things like, Kerry, we're going to remove these displaced people and place them into treatment centers, I think what I'm hearing from the Congresswoman is where are these treatment centers?
Well, clearly, once you start to send more money to the state's going to find a way to trickle that money down to all of the organizations, nonprofit organizations. I'm on the board of a homeless shelter. We need more money. If, in fact, the government's going to give you more money in order to find a place to put those folks, that's how can you argue with it? It's a great idea.
That's considering that the money would come down. Where has that money been, and where have those facilities been? The need has been there for some time.
The need's going to still be there until somebody actually puts. We could have solved homeless years ago if, in fact, we were serious about it. But now we've got an administration that says we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we want you to solve that problem.
Okay, I love you, but I want to see it where you think that any of those federal dollars are going to go to really solving the problem. I think he's saying put them in treatment treatment centers that do not exist. And those 501c3s, those nonprofits that you're talking about, are having their dollars cut already. There are homeless groups that I am working with, domestic violence shelters, that cannot even access the money right now that they've always had.
It's time, and he's found another way in order to send them the money.
Well, the devil's in the details, and I'd be very interested to know, and I think it's
the proof is in the pudding, and I don't believe that it's really going to happen.
We have to make sure that it does, if this is what he's saying. I'm very curious to know more about this. And by the way, we are putting in a word with the White House to ask for more information about this. Hopefully get someone to talk about it, but it's an important one.
We do need to take care of the homeless, and we need many resources to help.
And if you've ever been in cities such as Chicago and Las Vegas, where the homeless encampments have taken over, they're nasty. They're people don't have a place to go. You need, in order to put money into moving them off the street.
When he says this is in an effort to fight vagrancy, is this just criminalizing poverty, do you think, Kerry? Or do you think this is truly trying to get to the root of the problem?
It's saying we're going to actually put money into helping those folks that are on the street, move them from being on the street to someplace safe and clean.
Congresswoman, have Democratic lawmakers and Democratic presidents done enough to help solve this problem? Is this a step in the right direction if done the right way?
We need to do this. First of all, I'm just going to give you a dose of reality. We just passed a budget bill that cut Medicaid, is already going to take health care away from millions of people. And now we've got, I mean, look, we need to get people off the street. We need to get them the mental health treatment that they need. I just don't believe that there's really they're going to deliver that money to the state for it to go where it needs.
We'll bring her back 2 years from now and see if she
Well, let's see.
And you know what?
We'll do
I would
6
love
months
to
from
be
now.
wrong.
All right.
Yeah, and I would love for you to be wrong on that one as well. Let's see what happens. We'll watch it carefully. Let's talk about one that's being watched very carefully right now. This whole Epstein saga that's unfolding. It's a cold that doesn't seem to go away for, depending on the politician of choice, someone who doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Right now, President Trump has kind of changed his tone. He said, let's have everything released out in the open. And suddenly when his name popped up, and again, not in anything that was nefarious necessarily, but simply popped up as his name in the file, he is now saying, I don't necessarily need everything released. What do you make of this, Congresswoman?
Well, first of all, everybody says, why haven't we done things before? Why are everybody talking about it? President Trump made it an issue and said, we need to release those Epstein files. The Attorney General said, I have the files sitting on my desk. It is Republicans who made the commitment to the mega base they would do it, and they are the ones that have dropped it. And their mega base is demanding more answers and doesn't believe what they're watching.
The mega base is asking the question, hey, you know, we want everyone to be operating on a certain moral plane that allows us to know that all of the people that we like and know are where they belong, in a box of whether or not they were with Epstein, without Epstein, were they involved with criminal activity, were they not? Do Americans have a right to know, Kerry?
Americans have a right to know what's going on with those people who they've elected. What's happened in the last few days with the president sending his own personal Tom Hagen over to the jail to talk to Ms. Maxwell. Who knows how that's going to wind up? And I really want to see what's going to happen. Is she going to wind up? She's locked up in prison for the next 20 years. Her only angle at this stage is, I'm going to do whatever I've got to do to get out of jail. Let's see what happens.
And I'm going to say something. If they were to release her, the hue and outcry, I do believe the hue and outcry from this country would be loud.
I promise you our current president has had hue and outcry for so many things that wouldn't even make the list.
Well, I would certainly think that this is not, he's talked about it today and basically said at this point he's not even thinking about it or considering it, but we'll watch this one carefully. Let's talk.
He said that before on many other subjects, and we see the world change.
And so we'll,
including releasing the list.
And releasing the list. So we'll watch this one very, very carefully. I want to ask you about tariffs right now. This deal with Japan, at first glance, in our great state, this manufacturing hub of America, when you heard about the commitment, $550 billion that Japan's making in this trade deal, does it make you happy? Does it put a smile on your face, or are you skeptical?
No, I'm concerned. We are competing. Why are we giving Japan 15% when our neighbors in Canada have 25%, and when we've got joint venture agreements? I remember, I was young, but I remember the 70s when Japan was prepared, and we weren't. Our domestic auto industry wasn't for small cars, and we gave lost a decade to the Japanese manufacturers. We need to be playing on a level playing field, and the tariffing. Look, tariffs are a tool in the toolbox, and we need a level playing field. We need a level playing field with China, but I don't believe what he did with Japan leveled the playing field.
But don't you think now it allows cars, if they want them, American cars to be sold in Japan? American rice that's being grown here to be sold in Japan?
Let's see.
Kerry?
I personally think that, just as she said, it's a tool, and yeah, 3 months ago, we were really worried about how the tariffs work, but Treasury has had time since then to negotiate several deals, and every deal that they're negotiating, we've got companies such as GM here who have said, yeah, you're right, we need to bring more jobs back on shore. And we've got countries that are opening up saying, we know where you were at before, we're going to give you a break. It's so far, it appears that even though sometimes he clowns and steps on his own
chaos.
way, it appears that the idea is actually starting to work.
We talk a lot about guardrails. Go ahead, you wanted to say about this.
Well, no, but I also want to say we had a clock company that was here for 99 years that closed because of the tariffs. We've lost a chips investment because of the total uncertainty and the chaos. So I wish we could, and we've lost a lot of close friends that are allies in Europe and Canada. So we probably agree with where tariffs are a tool in the toolbox, but what we're witnessing now is total utter chaos.
Birthright citizenship. We have about a minute left here. This is the third time now a federal court has essentially put a stop. Is this essentially a guardrail that's working in your mind, Congresswoman?
I won't believe the guardrails worked until the Supreme Court rules, according to what the Constitution and Congress have said, which is, if you're born in this country, you've got a right to citizenship.
Kerry, that's a constitutional right, yes?
Yes, it's a constitutional right, but we also have a court that has shown you that they are going to be a political court and that they're going to follow as much for Donald Trump as they can. So all of the district courts can rule any way they want. Well, I've got an idea what is going to happen, what's going to happen once it gets to the Supreme Court.
Well, and we know that obviously the Supreme Court has said, hey, you know, less power to the lower courts, but now that's being fought a little bit, and this is the third time we've seen, arguably, perhaps a guardrail being put up. How sustainable is it? Can a Mack truck go through it? And will the guardrails stand? We'll see. But we're going to watch this one really carefully. I really want to thank you, Kerry, for joining us here today. Congresswoman, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, President Trump pushing for the U.S. to lead the way on a global scale when it comes to artificial intelligence. We're sitting down with a local AI expert to talk more about the president's plans and this kind of technology. You're watching The Pulse here on Fox 2. All right, welcome back to The Pulse, Metro Detroit's only nightly political talk show. It's being used more in professional, government, and everyday lives. We're talking about artificial intelligence. The mere two words can scare people, and it can make some people excited. Now, the White House says the United States will win the ongoing race to secure global AI dominance. Joining us tonight, CEO of Awcom and local AI expert Brent Yaks. Brent, it's always good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We always love having you on because you take something that is, by many people's standards, difficult to understand and explain it in a way that everybody can understand it. So talk about this particular piece that this president's moving forward. What does it really do for all of us?
Right. So recently, you know, they have this new AI strategy. Now, it's really an extension of the original EO that went out when they were forming, you know, some data center priorities within the U.S. Well, now we have 3 new EOs, and they are meant to create new innovation, create new infrastructure, and to simplify export process for AI-created goods and products. So it's really just a push to continue that drive.
And I want to get into some of these in a moment, but I think the one thing when you say the words, letters AI right away is people say, what about regulations, right? Is any of that in what we're talking about?
Well, it's actually further backing off of regulations for AI. Specifically, when we look at the building of data centers, there's a lot of process and procedure that has to happen, including things like environmental reviews. And these EOs are starting to back down on that to further the original EO to do that earlier in the year.
So to translate that for a lot of people out there who may not understand, it takes a lot of energy, right? Like environmental energy, like literal energy. Like when you talk about crypto, they say it takes a lot of energy, computer space and energy. And that's what they're saying. Hey, we don't need to consider the environmental implications. Let's move forward and kind of barrel through so we can make AI our global dominant force here.
It coincides with a couple, you know, focuses that this administration has been, you know, obviously heavy about. One is new power creation, power independence, right? So more mining, more drilling, more production. And then also this race to be the leader in AI. And to do that, we need more compute, we need more data centers, we need more places to actually process information. So these two are going hand in hand, which we kind of expected.
Take us through the spectrum of what being a dominant force in AI looks like for a country. From one end, medical, all the way to technology. Talk about how this affects us.
Well, the strategy here is that, the administration believes it's going to affect, almost every position, every person, every industry, even defense. And I think one of the kind of underlying things with this administration pushing so hard is they think defense is going to be really big with AI. So we're opening up the door to have new private, sector build AI, government to build AI data centers. It really just to be the country that controls what happens in AI.
But does that take away explicitly or expressly jobs from Americans?
I am, I think, helplessly optimistic, or hopefully.
Why is that?
Well, the reason I say that is because every time we have had a material shift in technology, it's created more jobs than it has lost. Now, there has been some shift. Usually there's a little bit of an industry here and there that has a tiny bit of adjustment or displacement, but usually we have a ton of job creation that happens after that. I don't see any difference with AI. I think AI is going to create a tremendous amount of new opportunities, but all of the trade jobs are going to stay. If not, they're going to increase demand. Most labor jobs are going to stay, if not increase demand. So I don't see the big impact negatively.
Well, when you take a look at people who are doing office work or clerical work, right, they're going to be affected. People who have associate's degrees and are working in offices, doing all kinds of that kind of work, wouldn't it hurt them probably the most?
It's just not at that level. We are years and years and years away from AI being at the level where it can actually do the things that a human does. There's no humanistic qualities of AI at all. So it could enhance people's productivity, could augment their talents, but as a replacement, we're just not close yet.
I want to talk about this one part of it that is highly political and interesting as well. He's saying we got to phase out AI wokeness. So that means, like, when I go search for or try to create an image of a founding father, they should appear as they were, a white male from Europe, not an African American, Indian American, or whatever it is that someone chooses. Is that what this is about?
Well, I mean, that has happened, right? There was cases of exactly that happening.
Probably not an Indian American founding father, but something similar, right?
Similar.
Exactly. Yeah.
But how I read this, and what I think is fairly consistent messaging with the administration, is that they're looking at getting ideology out of AI, getting bias eliminated, and overall just making it neutral and fact-based. And I think that's the overwhelming sound that I'm hearing. Of course, there's critics on that and say, well, maybe Trump just wants it to be his opinion. I just don't see that yet. I think it's bias, and I think it's getting out ideology.
Take us 6 months and then a year out now. After all of this is signed and the ink is dried, what does this look like for all of us?
Well, what I hope, and this is really just for me being a Southeast Michigander, what I really hope is that we start focusing on how do we adjust some of the policies in the state to attract some of the AI opportunities that are coming, because we're not looking at Silicon Valley jobs here. We're looking at trade jobs. We're looking at HVAC jobs. We're looking at electricians. We're looking at facilities managers and operators. These are great high-paying jobs that could be here if the state of Michigan adjusts what we need to adjust to attract them.
This is so interesting, and one that we'll continue to watch this story. And Brent, you've always done a great job explaining it to us in a way that everyone can understand, and I thank you for doing that again here tonight.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back. Well, thanks so much for joining us here on The Pulse. Remember, if you have a question or a topic you'd like to see, maybe a fact check you want to see as well, just email us at thepulse@fox.com. You can also use that QR code right there at the bottom of your screen. I'm Roop Raj. As always, it was great to be with you. Thank you again.